Hey guys, welcome back to section 2, and this is going to be a section on going through the necessary steps to create a low poly asset now, and we're going to go ahead and get this thing wrapped up and start baking. That's what this section's about, and I'm hoping we can do it in just 2 videos, but we'll see how it goes. Anyhow, I just want to kind of cover a few things that have happened since we last spoke. So let's just dive in and get rolling. All right. So what we have here is our sword that you should be at a pretty similar stage. I've gone ahead and added a bunch of control loops, and I'm just going to give a quick overview of what I've done. But yeah, I mean, this is stuff that you can definitely manage and you don't have to do. But at the same time, if you wanted to kind of follow the steps, I'm just going to give you a quick run through of what I've done to kind of just smooth up this mesh a little bit and kind of just add a little refinement. So let's just jump in here and take a look at what we've got. All right, so I'm just going to jump in here, and as you can see, this is a little bit different than where we left off, but nothing that you can't handle. I'm certain that you can do everything that, you know, if you've gotten this far, you can do all this. But I do want to introduce you to something new, so just to make your life a little easier. So in here you can see I've added 2 sets of control loops, right? Specifically this one and this one. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and delete that so you can see how I did it, because I want to introduce you to a new tool that's really cool and makes your life a lot easier when dealing with loops and double loops and triple loops and anything more than just a single I want to place a loop here kind of thing. So if you want to have a little more control, this is a great way to do it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and hit Control Delete and just get rid of that. And let me go to one view so you can see exactly where we are. Yeah, I'm in one view. Yeah, one view. So I'm just going to go right click object and just take a look at the polys. So this is what you should have, and this is what I have. And as you can see, I've got these double control loops here, okay? And they make this really nice beveled edge that ends up looking great. Like when we go to 3 mode, notice how crisp and sharp that looks. You know, it's like really nice. So for things like this, this is extremely useful. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to 1 mode, and we're going to go back to the side that looks like yours. And we're just going to do one simple operation. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go into our modeling toolkit, which is the first button. Okay, so we're just going to click that first button, get into the modeling toolkit, and we're going to go down to connect. Okay, now when you hit connect, nothing actually happens. If you had something selected, it might, but for the most part, it's not going to just start adding loops for you. So what you end up doing is you end up getting this kind of like new selection type, okay? And you can grab points and you can grab all sorts of stuff. We're not going to worry about the points yet. I'm going to show you that up here. But for now, let's just worry about how we're going to use it in this context. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the options for connect, which are right below it. And you're going to see that we have some choices in here. We have a slide, we have a pinch, and we have segments. So the segments is how many loops do you want to create? Okay, so we're going to set this to 2. Then the pinch is how much do we want to pinch it together. So what we want to do is go 0.95. Okay, and we're just going to select any one of the uprights in our area that we want to create a control loop, and you'll see how it works in a moment. So I'm just going to click it, and as you can see, we get these dotted lines. Okay, those are representing what our new setup is going to look like. Okay, that'll give us a nice comfortable edge. I like 0.95 in a lot of cases, so we're just going to use it here, and it looks really good, and it's what I used for all my other settings. So we're just going to go with that, and then you just undo the connect button, and you will see that you now have added your 2 control loops to that area. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now up here I want to show you one other thing really quick. All the other control loops I know you can handle. I put a control loop in here actually with the same method, so I just did this ring so that it sharpened it up a little bit. So if we look at it, right, we got this nice crisp like rounded area that's kind of flattened, right? So that looks a little nicer than just the without the control loops. So so yeah, you might want to put a control loop in here. And I actually put 2 control loops just like I did with the connect. So connect can actually be used once you have it set, right? So I can go in here and just start adding control loops anywhere I want, right? So I don't want to do it there, but just to give you the idea. So, but here, if you notice, I've got something kind of funky going on, right? So I want you to see what I did. So basically all I did was I put a single control loop. I set this to connect. So what I basically had done is I went into my connect and I set this to 1, okay? And when you set this to 1 and this to 0, right? Anytime you place it down, you're going to get a dead center connection loop, which is really great. Okay, this can be very, very useful. But as I said earlier, we never want to interrupt this circle. Okay, so to keep the circle perfectly circular, I had to make sure that I didn't have anywhere that it crossed into this. So I put my control loops upwards just to give it a little more, control. And then what I did was I just deleted the ones below it, right? And then connected these ones. And I'm just going to go in here, hit 1, and as you can see, it's just a triangle now, right? So all I did to do that was I went right-click, edge. I'm just going to delete these guys. Okay. Now, originally there was a connection line here. I'm not going to put that back, but if you do this, you'll get the same result, right? You're going to have a loop here, and it's going to cut all the way through all this stuff, and that's cool. That's fine. So you just want to delete those ones below this point, okay? And then you're just going to connect these points to make this our new quad, because we want to always keep it in quads. And all you do is you select this point and you select this point, and then you hit the connect button. And as you can see, when it's dealing in points, it's going to deal with it now as this type of a connection. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and undo the connect. And now when we select our object, we'll see that we now have a connection line, right? So that's good, right? So what we want to do now is just connect the other side. So I'm just going to go vertex again, select, and connect. And undo the connection. And now you should be back to where I am. Then when you hit 3, it'll all smooth beautifully, and you won't have any interruptions in that circle. So that's a way that you can kind of think about how to handle these kinds of problems, because you're going to run into stuff where you're going to want to have a little more control like I did, and you're going to want to have a little more because there was some little bit of weirdness going on up here, so I just kind of smoothed up these polys and just kind of made them all square and nice and clean, and yeah, I'm sure that you can handle that. So that's nothing new. The only thing you didn't really know was how to do these types of connections, and now you do, so you should be good. All right, so anyway, let's assume that you're caught up to me. Oh, the other thing I did was I pulled these out. I had forgotten them in the last video, so I just pulled these guys out, just an extrusion, put some control loops in. You can handle that too. I know you can. I have no doubt. So yeah, so that's where we are. I think I put a control loop in here just to sharpen up this edge, right there. See it? That lower one. This guy right here. Let me hit 1. So all I did was I added this one singular control loop, right? Edge right there, right? And I put it on the other side too, on the top, so it's right there. So that just sharpened up that and made it a little cleaner. But yeah, you can add control loops as you need. I did a little bit of fanciness on this tip, which was again exactly what I just showed you. I did a connection, and then I just point connected these guys to get rid of the loop that went all the way through, because I didn't want it to come all the way through. It was causing anomalies. But yeah, none of this stuff is necessary for this step. It's more just a little, I just want you to know how I got to where I got to, but I didn't want to waste everybody's time sitting here doing control loops and points and all this other stuff. So I just cleaned up my model how I wanted to. I recommend you do the same as far as what you think looks good. And you should be, basically here. So let's not continue on this. Oh yeah, I also put a couple control loops in here just to give it a little more body. So if I ever bring it over to sculpting, I can kind of sculpt in there a little better, because it'll just deform nicer. Okay, so one of the first things you're going to want to do is save this as a different version. I've already done that, but yeah, just save another copy, because what we're going to be doing from here is we're going to be kind of committing things. And once you commit, you don't really have much ability to go back anymore. So definitely save a copy right now, because we're going to be doing a lot of combining, and we're going to do a lot of things. We're going to be getting rid of all of our layers and combining them into one layer, and we're going to call it high poly and low poly, and that's all we're going to have now. So yeah, I would definitely make a copy and save it as something like, sword mesh combined or something. I don't know, whatever you'd like to name it. But just make sure you've gone ahead and made a secondary copy, okay? Because the first thing we're going to do now is delete our history, okay? So basically, everything you do in Maya LT is going to go ahead and start adding. So this is like the first thing we did, and then this is the second thing we did, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And see this big long list and how absolutely nightmarish it's become? Okay, those were all the little changes that we've made throughout the process. I don't want to get into how to utilize that right now, because I don't know, it's just okay. It's not the best history tool. So yeah, don't worry about it too much, but just know that there is this list of things that is happening to your object, and of course, the more that there are, the more complicated it becomes. I mean, look at this list; it's ridiculous, right? So we want to get rid of that list and just make it so that this is our object now, and this is our like raw mesh. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go Edit, and we're going to go into Delete by Type, and we're going to go History. And now you're going to see that when we select this, our history is nothing, right? We have no history anymore, okay? So this big long list is gone now, okay? So that's super cool because now it's nice and clean and it's going to be less likely to cause us problems. And we're going to want to do that to all of these. So I'm just going to go into this one and I'm going to go Edit, Delete by Type, and we're going to go History. And we're going to grab the sword blade and we're going to go Edit, Delete by Type, and we're going to go History. And we're going to grab our sphere. That probably is already done. It doesn't have much, but we'll do it anyway. Edit, Delete by Type, History, Handle, Edit, Delete by Type, History. Let's grab our little guy right here. Edit, Delete by Type, History, and lastly the little pummel. And we're going to go Edit, Delete by Type, and History. Okay, so now we should have all of our pieces with no history anymore. So that's good. Okay, and I just want to make sure that's combined. Yep, everything's good. This guy's combined. It's not combined, but we'll combine it all now. Okay, so all right, so that's now where we wanted it. What we're going to want to do next is commit our smooth mesh to our poly structure. Basically, what that means is we're gonna force the smoothing that's being done to this to the actual polys that are here. Okay, so to do that, all we're going to do is we're going to go Modify, okay, and we're going to go Convert, and we're going to go Smooth Mesh Preview to polygons. Okay, so let's just click that, and you'll see you get this incredibly dense mesh now that is really looking like incredibly smooth and really nice. Okay, if we did everything right, it should be fantastically good. Okay, but as you can see, it makes a really dense mesh. Okay, so we may not want it so darn dense. Okay, and in here under our channel box layer editor, under inputs, the last one on the list is going to be Poly Smooth Face Modifier. And in here we have a choice of divisions, so you can set this to 0 if you'd like, and it would go back to the way it was. If we hit it to 1, it will do 1 layer of subdivision. Okay, if we do 2, it will be back where it came default and much higher density, but we can actually put this up to 5 if we wanted to, or 4, or just kick that way up, and it gets so crazy dense that it'll maybe even hurt your computer. I wouldn't recommend pushing it up too high because it can really cause you to be slow and sluggish. It's literally making millions of polygons at this point. So we don't really want that. We want more like 2. I think 2 is probably good for our case. So let's just stick with 2 for now, but I just wanted to show you can control those subdivisions as much as you'd like. Okay, so the next thing is going to be doing the same thing to this guy. So let's just grab him, and we're going to go Modify, and we're going to go Convert, and we're going to go Smooth Mesh Preview to polygons, and we're going to leave that one alone too. So we're going to go to our sword handle now, and we're going to go Modify, and we're going to go Convert, and we're going to go Smooth Mesh Preview. Just make sure it's on the 3 mode. That's what I keep making the mistake of. And I'm going to go Modify, Convert, Smooth Mesh Preview. And the same one for this guy. Make sure this is on 3. It is. Modify, Convert, Smooth Mesh Preview. And the last one is this guy. Modify, Modify, Convert, Smooth Mesh Preview. Oops, it's not smooth, so I'm going to smooth it. Modify, Convert, Smooth Mesh Preview to polygons. Okay, so now that we've got all of our little pieces converted, as you can see, it's become very dense. Okay, so now what we want to do, this guy isn't done yet, so let's go 3, and let's go Modify, and let's go Convert, and Smooth Mesh Preview. So this one's done now too. Okay, so now we've got all of our pieces. Yeah, all of our pieces are now properly subdivided, and now we can do our baking without any trouble at all, because sometimes the reason that we do that is because sometimes the smooth mesh preview doesn't really work so well with baking. So that's why I do this, just to make sure that I'm getting the true polys of the bake rather than a smooth mesh preview giving me the bake. It just seems to work cleaner and better for me, so that's how I do it. Yeah, so now that we have all that done, what we want to start doing is putting this all together as one solid element and body. Okay, so how we're going to do that is we're just going to grab all of our pieces, every single one of them. Oops. Okay, and we're just going to go mesh, combine. Okay, so now this is all one piece. Okay, so now what we want to do is just start turning off layers until we find out which one it's in. It actually isn't in any. I forgot that when it combines, it actually takes it out of whatever layer it's in and leaves it non-layered. I guess that's an advantage. I don't know. It's a little strange, but whatever. It's fine. So just go ahead and select it, and we're going to go ahead and change our, I guess, the sword blade. We're just going to rename this. So just double click and say high poly sword. Again, no spaces, no special characters. So we're just going to hit save. And now we've got high poly sword. So now what we can do is actually, you know what, let's grab sword hilt, double click it, and let's call this now low poly sword. Okay, and I'm just going to hit save. And there we have it. So these two are probably not going to be needed anymore, so I'm just going to right click and delete layers, and right click, oops, right click, delete layer, and we should be good. So now we have our picture plane still, we have our high poly sword, and we have our low poly sword. So now what we want to do is actually apply this guy to the high poly sword. So let's select it and just right click and say add selected objects. And as soon as it does, if you have it turned off, it'll disappear, but you can just turn it back on and it'll reappear. All right, so there we have our high poly sword all combined and ready for wrapping. And that's going to be that. So now let's move into the low poly sword building, and we're going to be right on our way. All right, cool. Let's start. Hey guys, all right. So the first step of this is to first of all know what your poly count needs to be. So we're doing the sword for the Omni Knight, and because I always felt like Omni Knight needed a sword, and I liked the sword. I don't know, he's cool, and I wanted him to have a sword. So anyway, I digress. Forgive me. What you have to do is you have to go to this website. It is dota2.com/workshop/requirements. And in here, you can find everything you need to know about your character's requirements. Basically everything. So if we scroll down, we can find our Omni Knight. And in here, we can read all of the model and texture files, and we can download them so that we have actually the model, and we can load that up into Maya LT. However, we don't need that right now. We're not going to cover that this moment. That'll be later on. We'll come back to the site to get that file. If you want to download it now, you can and be ready for the tutorial then, but I would say, you know, download it if you'd like. I'm going to cover it later again. What we really care about is this area right here, okay? Especially since we're making the weapon, this area, okay? So what we're going to read here is that we have LOD0 and LOD1 and the actual size of the textures, and we have the what it needs to be skinned to, okay? And that's later on also. What we really care about right now is actually this one, okay? The limits for the LOD1 parameter, because we only have one normal map in this system, so because of that, it kind of makes it like better to design for LOD1 than for LOD0 as far as I can tell. LOD0 is cool, but you can't really adjust your normals afterwards, so I don't know. I find it just works better to just go to the lower poly count, do it right, and get a very good bake on your low poly and leave it there. So that's what I've been working to do, and I just find it's fine. You know, I mean, sure, 650 polys are going to be great for someone who has the need for it, but for our sword, the extra polys don't really help us enough to make it worth doing 2 LODs. I'll show you how, but we're not, you're going to end up probably just loading this one because this one loads just fine and there's no reason to have the high poly. I don't know. You might disagree. That's fine. You can decide that as you go. It's all going to come down to the bake anyway, and like I said, you only have one normal map, and the only places that I found the need for it was in the bevel of the sword, and in that case it didn't really translate. So I don't know. It's fine. So yeah, you need to know this number. Okay, this is the key number right here. We need to know that our LOD1 is 400 limit. That's our smallest model, and that's what we have to adhere to. So back to our model. So now, how do we take this massively complex model and turn it into 400 polygons, right? We have, at current, if we look at our number of polygons, we are at 52,686. I mean, that's a lot of polygons. Obviously, we can't carry that over in this model. So what we have to do is we have to start building the wrapper or the cage that we're going to translate all this information onto. All right. So let's actually do that now. It's actually a lot easier than how I just explained it, but it's important to know what the underpinnings are. And I recommend you learn more about normal mapping because it's a very intricate and cool thing, and it's essential to doing really good 3D modeling. But yeah, so let's go into polygons. Let's grab ourselves a cylinder, and let's go to our perspective view and start drawing out the cylinder for the base. And let's put it at 0, 0, 0. And move it into position. And we've done all this before. This is actually much easier than anything we've done. So this is going to be a cakewalk for you at this point. It's more the theory now than it is the difficulty of what we're doing. We've done the hard stuff, you know, like this is just the process now. So we're just going to build up our sword, and the trick now is going to be going into our inputs and lowering all this information. So now what we don't want 20 anymore. What we want is like 5, you know, like, yeah, that's going to be 6 is probably going to be good for us here. Okay, because we're now looking at making sure that we don't have any extra polygons for any reason doing anything that isn't absolutely essential. So I'm just gonna make sure this encompasses that whole ring and everything, say, just like that. And I'm just gonna scale it down, and that should be fine. That should be fine. All right. And our base, we're just going to do easily. We're going to go right click. We're going to go face. We're going to turn off the high poly sword for a moment. Oh, all right. So what we also have to do is we just have to select it. And for the poly cylinder, we want to make sure that the subdivision caps are set to 0. We don't want any caps because it'll make it too hard to select everything. So go face. Select, delete. So we don't want those faces because that's extra polygons and we're not going to see them. They're going to be gone, right? So we don't want to see those. That's a waste. And now we really have to start watching our poly count. Okay, so that's up here. This is the polygon 6, right? So right now we have 6 polygons, and we need to make sure that that we adhere to that. So in this case, it's going to be good to turn this guy on T, so you can actually see what you're doing a little bit. So I'm just going to right click, I'm going to go edge, I'm going to double click, and I'm going to move it up. And I'm going to go extrude, and I'm going to move, and I'm going to go down, and I'm going to scale. And I want to do this in as few movements as I can. And we're really just very roughly encompassing the entirety of our structure. And we're going to go extrude, and we're going to go move, and we're going to push it down. And we're going to go extrude, and we're going to go move, and we're going to squeeze it down. And here what we're probably going to just do is just select it like that. And now here's another way that you can use your merge vertice tool very effectively. So we're just going to go vertex. We're going to select all the vertexes on that bottom edge, right? So I just got that little bottom area selected. And I'm going to go mesh, edit mesh, merge with the selection. And here I'm just going to actually ramp it up until it assuredly grabs all of them, right? And I'm going to go apply and close. And as you can see, it's now encompassing that whole, like that's now one merge vertice. So I got all of them, even though they weren't like perfectly close to each other. So now I'm just going to go face, select this guy, select the other one that's opposite it, yeah, this one, and scale out. And edge. This guy, I'm just going to grab the circle of it and just lift it up a little bit. Okay. And we're just going to drag out a cylinder. And we're going to rotate it. And we're going to move it into position. And I'm going to move it down. Go into my front view. Put it into position. Look at it from perspective, get it about the right thickness. Scale it in. And we're just going to want to lower this down as much as we can now. Actually, it's not quite good yet. Oh, that'll do. We're just going to squeeze it in. And that's good. And now what we want to do is, again, go into the poly input and just adjust this down to something more reasonable, like 8 maybe. Yeah, 8's probably going to do it perfectly, actually. So that's good. And we're just going to go face, and we're just going to select these two guys, and we're going to go extrude, and move. And what we're really doing is exactly what we've already done. We're just doing it at a much simpler level. You know, it's not, we're not doing anything differently. You know, it's not, this isn't a daunting part of the job. You know, this is like pretty straightforward. We're just doing exactly what we did. We're just being really rough about it, you know. But it's important to make sure that you kind of have some basics. And we're going to add a little bit just to make sure that everything works properly, but yeah, I mean, we're just tracing over our old model and extruding and doing just like we've done through all the other stuff. So let's go extrude one more time and move and scale. And move, nudge it into position, and extrude. Oops, I think I want to bring that. Yeah, we'll do that later. So extrude, and that's probably going to be it. Yep. So we're just going to go edge, select the edge, and move it out into the center point. So we have a nice, you know, that, right? Now, as you can see, we're already kind of encompassing this, but we're just going to want to nudge a little more and see how it goes. And as you can see, we're already kind of, getting up there in poly count. So if we select both, we can see that we're already up to 66 polys, but we still have some room. We're going to do this, and the sword's really light, so yeah, we should be good. But we always want to keep an eye on that. What's our poly count, Because you don't want to start approaching it. You want it to be as rough as possible, and then add it to get to your poly count, rather than the other way around. So just something to keep in mind. And this is a try. I'm going to make this a quad. This is a try. I'm going to make it a quad. This is a try. I'm going to make it a quad. Actually, I'm going to delete this whole side so it doesn't matter. And just do it on the other side. Try, try. Another 2 quads. And we're good. Yeah, we're good. We want to grab the center point. And the center point. Oop, yeah, it doesn't matter. I'm going to delete that anyway. And scale it until it is outside of your sphere. And that should be pretty good. Yeah, that's fine. Right click, edge, select, Control Delete, and we should be good. Actually, let's just grab the face tool, select. It's annoying. And make sure that nothing else is selected. And delete. Good. All right. Now all we have to do is mirror it. So we're just going to go Object Mode, select, Edit, Duplicate Special, Apply. It's on the negative x-axis. Close. And Mesh, Combine, right-click, Vertex, select all your center point vertexes, edit mesh, merge, and we want to put this back down to 0.0001, apply, close, and we're good. Now we're just going to pull up the top, right click, face, select, extrude, move, scale, that'll do, extrude, move, scale, just, matching my original model. Now, this is easy, I just kind of almost like simply just wrapping it out. extrude, move, and scale. Okay. Okay, for this next procedure, what we're going to do is, first of all, get all of our stuff associated to the proper layer. So let's select our low poly sword layer and just go add selected objects. Okay, so this way we can just turn off our low polys and make sure that that's all good. Okay, and all of our high poly should be the one object that's in our high poly. Okay, so now let's go ahead and turn off the T mode and let's put it into regular mode, and let's take a look at what we want to do, because we want to create the sword part. So in order to do that, we're actually just going to pull it from the original object, because we never did a smooth on it, and it just is easy to pull from our existing sword than it is to rebuild the thing. So so yeah, and it'll show you a new little trick that you can use you know, when you're building stuff. So okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to go face, and we're going to double click everything in the sword layer, and we're going to go mesh, and we're going to go extract. Okay, right click and go object mode, and now you'll see that the sword is separated from our high poly. Okay, so what we did is we just, everything that was selected was just extracted and put into a new object. Okay, so now what we can do is we can actually go and duplicate this object. So Control D will duplicate the object. Okay, so there's one thing that you're going to need to know that is kind of a little weird. So once you do an extraction or a combine or anything like that, basically what happens is it creates a group of objects based off of what it was created from. And that can be really convenient at times, but in this specific case, it's kind of a nuisance because we want to be able to move it in here and be able to have it work the way we want to. But because it's grouped, when we turn this one off, the whatever was from that group would also be turned off. So that doesn't work well for us. So what we want to do is make sure that that group is like crushed. We don't want it to exist. Okay, so to do that, we're going to go into a new window that you haven't seen before. It's called the Outliner, and this shows you everything that goes on in your scene. And we don't have to worry about too much. Just grab one of the pieces and we'll see it. It'll be highlighted. Okay, so just select it, and then you're just going to go Edit, Ungroup. Okay, now they're not connected in any way, shape, or form anymore, and we can go about our business as normal. Okay, so let's just close up the outliner, and let's now organize all of our pieces to be where we want them to be. Okay, so let's grab our high poly and one of the sword blade pieces, and let's right click and say, oops, and right click and say Add Selected Objects, and let's turn that off. Oops, it seems like I have the low poly object selected in there too. Oh no, the low poly isn't turned on yet. So we'll just turn that off and select all the pieces for the low poly and right click and say Add Selected Object. Now when we turn off low poly, we should have everything off there. And what we should now have is a way too high poly sword blade connected to our low poly sword, but we're going to fix that. And we should have a full high poly sword. Okay, so that's where we want to be right now. And let's just turn off the high poly sword and turn on the low poly sword, and let's start making this into something that we can use for our low poly sword. So all we're going to do now is right click and say edge mode, and we're going to start going in and taking out any unnecessary loops. So just grab this one and this one and this one, because the point actually meets there, and that's really where it's going to start angling again. And again, we're just trying to make it so it's a low poly as possible. Okay, so just keep wiping these down, and we're just selecting and selecting. And Control and Delete. Okay, so now we just wiped out all of those unnecessary lines that were going to cost us a lot of polygons. Okay, so at this point we're actually really close now. Now it's just going to be a matter of where do we want to add detail. And I just want to right click object mode first and just select all my pieces and see what my poly count is at. And yeah, we're looking pretty good at this point. We're looking really good at this point. In fact, we could actually wrap this and get a really good bake out of this right now. But we're going to do some more to make it just a little bit better so that we have just a little nicer of a bake. Okay, so now what we want to do is we want to kind of go through our model and make sure we don't have any 90-degree angles. Okay, so like right here, this is 90 to that. And I don't want to get into the theory of how normal maps bake and all that stuff. There's plenty of videos you can find out more, and I recommend you do. There is an invaluable, just an invaluable treasure trove of information out there, and it is so important to understand the way that normal maps work that, you know, it just helps you innumerably. When you start to do this a lot, you're going to really want to understand why it works the way it works. But for now, all we're going to worry about is how to get it there, okay? Because all you really need to know is what will cause problems. And basically the thing that will cause the biggest problems is a 90-degree angle. So you want to kind of crush any chance of a 90-degree angle and just nip it in the bud, and get rid of it and make your life easier, because it'll just smooth better, it'll look better, it'll work better. It's the only major issue you have to really worry about, and you can get good bakes almost every time if you just do a couple simple things. All right, so that's what we're going to do now, is we're going to start getting rid of those 90-degree angles. All right, so to start beveling this, we really have to be careful of our poly count now, because we're getting kind of close. It's the triangles that we're really worried about. Okay, that's what the polys are going to mean. So when they're saying poly, they're not meaning a 4-sided polygon; they're meaning a 3-sided polygon. So each of our polys is actually two. So that's why we have you know, double the number, and probably a few of them are merged in some places, but yeah, but basically we're really worried about this triangle count, and we're getting kind of close. We're at 286 at this point, and we need to keep it below 400. So some of the operations we're going to do may end up blowing up our model, and we'll have to start reducing again. So we're going to start hitting that limit soon, and we're going to start making decisions to do things that are going to make it better for us, but you know, and we're gonna have to keep it right at that 400 mark. Okay, so let's just first start by running a test on running an edge loop around this whole thing and seeing where our poly limit is. So, and of course, every hero in Dota is going to have a different poly limit. Every model you make is going to have a different poly limit. So that's why you have to know what your poly limit is before you start. Because otherwise you don't really know where to gear it. You know, it could be much higher polygons, and then you could do it even more detailed. Because the closer this wraps your original model, the better your normal map is going to end up looking. So you know, Dota has the characters are pretty far away, and they're kind of smaller characters, and they have just, you know, they don't have a need for such high poly count objects. So that's why, you know, we're doing this, because it's really low polygon count. But if you know how to do this, you can do it anytime, because you just make this wrapper tighter. That's all, nothing different. So okay, so I've selected all the loop on both sides. And now all I'm going to do is I'm just going to bevel it and see how it works out. So I'm going to go Edit Mesh, and in here is a tool called Bevel, and we're going to grab the options, and I'm just going to set it at about, I don't know, 0.25. Okay, and I'm going to hit Apply. And I'm going to hit Close. And so now what we've done is we've removed that 90-degree angle that was wrapping our whole thing, which should give us a much better bake. Okay, and now we just want to select all of our objects and see where our poly count is. And we're actually still below our poly count. So we can start seeing if we can clean anything up to get a slightly better look. Like I see this, and I'm not totally thrilled with it. So I'm probably just gonna get rid of these. No, I can't do that. No, that's fine, really. It's fine. It's just the way the Bevel wanted to do it. It's not gonna hurt anything. And if we're not over our poly count limit, I'm not going to worry about it. and I'm just going to see how the bake's going to go. All right, so I think we're actually ready to bake, or at least to test bake, and see how everything fares. Okay. The one thing we're going to want to do is make sure certain things are smoothed and that certain things aren't. So let's make sure everything's smooth that needs to be smoothed, because that's really important, and everything that's not smoothed will not. You know, we're going to make sure that it has a creased edge where we need it. Okay, so let's do that now. So let's go face, and let's grab all of these guys. And it looks like they're actually set to smooth already, but I just want to make sure. And we're going to go normals, soften edge. Okay, and now we're going to go around the outside edge. We're going to forget about that one in the center, because that's actually going to apply to what we're doing, so we don't have to worry about it. So we're going to go to normals, soften edge. Now that should be good. Okay, and now we're just going to do face, and this one we want to just select that ring. We don't want that to soften. Okay, so we're not going to soften that. And actually, you know what? We have to do this as edges. So let's do the edges and select them as a ring. Okay, so we have all the edges selected. And we're going to go normals, soften edge. Okay, and the same thing we're going to do for these guys. You know what? I'm just going to go to the side mode. I always try not to do it, and every time I just wish I just did what I'm supposed to do. So, yep, there. And normals, soften edge. Grab these guys. Normals, soften edge. And the ones in the middle. Normals, soften edge. Okay? And I'm just going to tab out. And we should have, you know, what's looking pretty good here. Yeah, it's looking good. It's starting to do what it's supposed to. And this guy, we're just going to leave alone.